Doing a bit of a review on the Ireland football final and just trying to pick out stuff that coaches could take away. What ideas? What does it do to the game? What effect will it have on how people view the game? Which could be quite significant. And just a few details in the game around the big moments for me, the little tactical changes that may have for either side that may have turned the game. And broadly, I think the game did go along the lines of a lot of expectations. Funnily enough, Kerry didn't play well or near their best. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But they were still doing the things they wanted to do. Speed of kickouts, getting the shape, slightly winning the kickout battle overall, although significantly, I think in the first half, Mayo had actually won the battle. In the end, they didn't. But there's details in the kickouts and a change around minute 21 that I think is really significant that I'll go into later on when we get to it. So I'm going to go through some of those significant stages as we go. Obviously, spectacular win, occasion, event. I don't think it's completely unique way of playing. I think other teams are trying to do this, and I think the Mayo press and high positioning, it's excellent. It's really well coached. The key difference is we got the athletic development hat on here now, or even my skill acquisition hat, in the sense that genetically, selection wise, Mayo have the athletes to do this, and I think that's the one caveat and key takeaway. Monaghan can't play this way. Right? They don't have the athletes or the population pick to do this. Mayo's not a very populous county, but it's a one sport county, more or less. And they get all the best athletes, and they are very good athletes. It was hard to weigh up whether they were as athletic or would the athleticism be enough for Kerry. And it turns out it was. Maybe some circumstantial reasons because of Kerry's fatigue, injury. There's some contextual elements to that. There's no doubt. I think Kerry didn't get to put their best foot forward for whatever reason. But we have to be careful when analysing. Mayo have exceptional athletes. They get to pick the best athletes. They're over that 100,000 line. It's probably a little bit higher, in fact. But I say the 100,000 line, that you're not winning an All Ireland without 100,000 people available in some sort. So that's not a rule. That's just a general principle, I believe. Right. So that has to be taken into consideration. They have exceptional athletes, and they did the press very tactically well, and obviously have got better and better and better at it. It wasn't just intensity, and drives me bananas the narratives that come out of this regularly in any sport, but we seem obsessed with it in hurling, to a lesser extent football. But again, it's like Mayo's chaos, frantic nature. Absolutely, it suits them. Like, they want to bring a bit of chaos. Yeah, they've lent in really exceptionally well through Andy Moore and his management team into their own DNA, and that's a great skill. But they've brought a lot of tactical basketball and soccer stuff for me. Genga pressing without any shadow of a doubt, but they're squeezing the pitch, old Italian soccer style. It's as old as the hills. 50s, 60s, Inter Milan and Juventus played this way. Okay, you can't do everything exactly the same way because it's a different pitch, different size, more room to get out, and that was the worry everybody had about this kind of pressing. Could Kerry play their way out? Kerry could kick their way out, but they didn't. Hard to know why that is, right? They're all exceptionally good footballers and kickers. I personally think, and I'll move on to the game now, that the players didn't present for it. So I don't think it was laziness. I don't think it was anything like that. There was some form of structural issue there, that they were left man on man at the back. And what you do, if that's happening and it's an extreme press, at least at the start till you get a handle on it, you have to overload. You have to get your 11 players back, play it around, move them around, give and go, give and go, give and go, work on the loop. And footballers like Kerry will get out, and they've done this before. So that was the key part that was missing there. They never figured that out, but they never gave the options to Dylan Casey and Paul Murphy, who probably came under the hardest pressure. But all of them, Jason Foley, brilliant player, under serious pressure the other day, brought out to the middle of the field at times, didn't suit him. Didn't suit him on O'Donoghue, whereas I predicted maybe Kobe would be a bad match. As it turns out, eventually, playing inside the 20, there was one or two times where O'Donoghue was in trouble with Foley, particularly early in the game. But brought it out around the field. He could use his step and go, and he went looking for the ball and carried Mayo. So I'm just going to go through the matches as crisply as I can, just a few points on critical moments of the game, really, where I think the game changed. The next, it was a follow-up of this. If you just look at, this leads to a wide 2-point shot, right? Again, showing their intention, which now in hindsight was very clearly instructed. But their setup is exceptional, and nothing spectacularly new, but look at the refusal, the cheating. They're not man marking, it's a 3-4-4, and they're getting to the point of the landing, and there is the man who just gave away the last shot. Okay, straight away Byrne is back on it, chance for 2, let's go for it. Okay, a significant insight into their mentality, and a warning sign to Kerry that I'm not sure they took. This is the next significant one for me. Again, the next, it was a follow-up of this. If you just look at, this leads to a wide 2-point shot, right? Again, showing their intention, which now in hindsight was very clearly instructed. But their setup is exceptional, and nothing spectacularly new, but look at the refusal, the cheating. They're not man marking, it's a 3-4-4, and they're getting to the point of the landing, and there is the man who just gave away the last shot. Okay, straight away Byrne is back on it, chance for 2, let's go for it. Okay, a significant insight into their mentality, and a warning sign to Kerry that I'm not sure they took. This is the next significant one for me. Again, showing the pressure, but unfortunately for Dylan Ganey in the end, he gets injured here. The pressure is intense. Arguably not a foul at all, but regardless, it was given, but it was costly to Kerry because he hurt his knee. Big contact there. Looks free there now from that angle, to be honest. But it showed the intent and the pressure that Mayo were starting to apply. And now another indication of the pressure. When do you see this? That's a man-to-man press, which I think you should always do for indirect freeze, and kicked out over the sideline. Again, it's still 3-1 here, and Kerry will go further 5 points ahead. So it's just interesting, though, that Mayo's psychological attitude, it had started early, and they were willing to stick at it no matter what happened. And obviously the goal happened, and they stuck at it after that. Again, this is before the goal, but giving us real signs of what was going on. Maybe in the wrong. So from this 2-point shot, again, psychologically, as a coach, as a supporter, as a player behind this play, you would be concerned at the amount of balls we're kicking into the goalie's hands. That's the way we think. Let's be straight about it, right? It's not great, but the attitude and the pressure here and the willingness, and that's a great hit. The willingness not to dive in, but to time, work off triggers. And again, Paul Murphy under pressure. Didn't give a free. It was clearly over carrying for me. But again, turned back over. Okay. But again, for me, it was shown that the intensity and the full backline were in trouble. A young team then is, having heard and practiced for a week or two in whatever way, Kerry are vulnerable if they're left back there. Okay? If we press up on them, they won't be useful. And now it's starting to happen. So now players start believing. So now we are looking at the kick out before the goal. Okay? And in fairness, in the balance of, every player and every Mayo thing they did wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination, as it never will be at this level of match. There was a few notable things about this. It's a really good goal, but Mayo are well set up there, right? When this pass happens, though, Carney has to go, and he's kind of man-watching, on the other side. Now, I thought Kerry were quite subdued in their celebration. Might seem silly, might seem like overthinking, but it was just, there was something lacking about it. And it's a good goal, obviously. Brilliant move from Shawnee Shea and Clifford, and you expect him to finish from there. But it just felt a bit weird, even at the time. They didn't quite celebrate like they celebrated scores in other games. Straight away, the next kick out goes to a Kerry break from long. So for me, now at this point, I would be looking at the game. I can't remember the notes I took exactly, but I would be thinking this could be carnage. All the evidence that was there, young fellas doing young fella things, like taking what seemed, maybe we knew they were going to go for 2-pointers, wild shots. They weren't wild, that's unfair, but they were probably ill-advised at times against the wind into the hill, right? And you could see in the air, a few of them looked like going over at one point, 2 of them in particular, and they dropped short, and you could even see Shane Murphy kind of being a little bit surprised by the wind catching one. So they didn't learn from that. Then they're looking like they switched off a little. Long kickouts. Kerry have got 1-1 now. They've just given away this ball. What's going to happen next? You could be thinking floodlit gates open. So from here now, this is played on a bit from the last kick out. This is a score for Shawnee Shea. I think this is the changing of the game. Okay? I think Kerry got a bit lax after the goal, even more so after this. But Joe Connor is fouled there. They look at Shawnee Shea way up on the top of the screen. He's setting himself up for a 2. There's a great close down here, as they call it in basketball, close out. And he's not got a 2-point shot. I think it's Enda Hessian. I can't be sure. Okay, if they forced Kerry to ones that were potential 2s a few times, and that's absolutely critical. Maybe a bit of luck because the keeper slipped here, but for me, at this point, okay, we got to think about it. Confidence is up. We have gained confidence. Obviously, they've done it in other games as well. But the big question was, could we press Kerry and cause them trouble? Right? With a few frees given away against us, I feel there were poor frees, poor refereeing. I thought the first 10 or 15 minutes was very Kerry biased. They got everything. Yellow card for Jordan Flynn, that was highly questionable. And there was a foul just previous to it that Kerry got. But that started to change and even itself out. And they put pressure on Dylan Casey, Paul Murphy. Confidence needs evidence, right? So they had the evidence that the pressing was work. But there was a tactical problem. They were still now being beaten for 1-2 from their own kickout. So something had to change. And it did. And for me, whether it was direction or on the field decision making, this was the kickout. Okay? This is where Mayo wrestled back a little bit of control. And Kerry dropped off a lot. Okay? David Clifford not involved in pressing whatsoever. Very, very little effort. I think it might have been Dylan Gainey there. Right, so Mayo get up the field. And there is much better from Byrne here. Earlier in the game, he got He got caught out in the sideline for overplaying, really. And then you have the 2-point. So Kerry don't get a 2-pointer, right? I think that Sean O'Shea was setting himself for a 2-pointer. They get the kick out away with a short kick out to the sideline. Big confidence booster. Our keeper can do that. We can get out against Kerry's press. We go down and score 2 points. All of a sudden it's 1-5-3. And for me, tactically, you know, because a lot of things were already happening in terms of their confidence. So Mayo were up for it. The blood was up, the pressing was up, the tackling was up. So no problem there. Things had happened to them and they kept doing that. So if you're looking from the sideline, that's great. But Jesus, Kerry have got 1-2 from our kickouts and it's starting to look a bit ominous because we haven't been able to stop them in their strength. And is this going to be an avalanche? Which there was evidence of this year and especially in last year's All-Ireland final and semi-final. So that was a key factor. And I think that was the couple of minutes that gave Mayo an overall balance to their tactical approach. They could kick it short. And that puts a little bit of doubt in Kerry too. Now, the next bit. The press. Okay, very impressive from Mayo. But what could we learn from being pressed at that? It's going to happen all the time now. Teams are going to do this who don't have the athletes up front to do this. But regardless. Okay, get away short. That's good for Kerry. They've been in trouble on a few kickouts. The press is really good. The physicality is there. Look at... they're locking on everywhere. Okay. But the foul is okay. Right? Because that's going to invite new pressure. A chance to step up. 50-50, I don't know. Referee's angle can change how you look at things like that, in fairness. It looks there like a good tackle, but I wouldn't be too harsh in that decision. Still the press is up. Okay, still the pressure. That's the first and only time I think I can remember Kerry kicking up the line like that from the press. They weren't outlets to kick to. There's a lot of talk about kicking, right? But if you look at this here, people saying Kerry should have kicked more. Very easily said, very hard to change, right? We're going to draw out something here. Okay. One. I'm actually going to have to go back a bit. No, this is the pressing. I'd often say to players, do not be worried about marking lads on the far side. And this is the crux of what a lot of people spoke about in the run into this game. Very fairly and very understandably, they did this, okay? So, this is the weak side player, Kerry, way out in the wing. Don't mark him, okay? I'm not actually sure if Carney is on this player. I can't be sure. I think it might be Hessian or someone like that back here. Okay, but inside the game here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? Versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So minimum 7v7, they're pushing up. But the danger here, he's marking the middle of the space, but he's willing to push up and be brave. I think Andy Moran spoke about this after, that they just started when they slowed the tackles. Carney and a few others got brave. But you got to ignore, if you're going to press, you have to take risks. And this is one of the hardest things to coach in football, because I've coached this exact press with some success and with utter failure. I'll be totally honest, right? And it is about buy-in, and it's about, evidence for confidence that we can do it. And players are so afraid of being exposed that this player will push up here and mark this guy and create space in here. and then you're just looking at little 1-2s and these players can get out. Mayo didn't allow that happen, and that's an absolutely crucial part of what they were doing. There is a bravery. You have to rob Peter to pay Paul. And I think this is the notable part. If you're not willing to sacrifice this guy over here, and you're not willing to take the risk that a quick 1-2 and a nice kick across is going to get them out, then don't do it. Just don't do it. If you don't have the athletes for it, if you don't have the buy-in for it, you don't do it. Okay? I kind of ended up this year just gone with a little bit of a hybrid, and it needed to carry one player. And it worked at times and it didn't work at other times. And that's the bottom line. Okay? A good top scoring forward wasn't able to press. And, learned about cheating and got a little bit better at that. But overall, we were still breached too many times for it to call it a proper high press approach. So that's a very critical element of this for coaches, and I want this to be for coaches as well. If you're going to go do this, they've made the pitch small, as you may have seen in my previous video on the preview of this, what they're doing. They're pushed right up. One little thing I would change here on the right, I would have these Mayo men standing in front of their men. I would make the opposition see the colour of your jersey as much as possible. It's a small thing, but just see a few white jerseys across there, just that one step ahead. And if they keep creeping up, you're actually condensing the field. So I think that's a really, really important element of pressing. You can't bluff it. You just cannot bluff it. I think this next part is significant as well. Thomas Sullivan's had two poor wides. One was a bit of a Superman shot, really. I think Paddy was sending this in deliberately to change the attack. I'd be all for it myself, but it's significant for a young goalie to come out that confident and win the ball in that way. Was really, really impressive. That's a clear foul, okay? Jordan Flynn, it'll show after, it's across the body, and I don't think it's a yellow card, to be perfectly honest. It's not high, and his hands are out pretty quickly. The referee's in an unbelievable position, and he's just missed a clear foul from Kerry, and that was just frustrating. But again, it was frustrating me watching the match, and frustrating Jordan Flynn as we're looking here, frustrating Andy Moran as we're looking there. But they kept ahead, and they kept going back to the process, as they call it, right? And it was really, really excellent. And then again, I think this might be the fourth wide in about 4 minutes. And everything is pointing towards confidence growing for one team and ebbing away for another. Again, this is after a Johnny Shea point. Maybe a goal on, and just not going to show the coverage. People know the ones he could have passed in Sean Brown, but he stopped the rot. Crucially though, why I think this is important is Kerry have switched off. Dylan Gainey must be injured. I think that's getting Dylan Gainey up there. That's very soft. They're not active in their press. But Mayo go for the short again, and they get out. They're wrestling back control. Major turning point number 3. Tommy Conroy being brought on, and the ruthlessness of that happening in the 25th minute. 24th. Brilliant to see that. It's harsh on the toe who came off, but he wasn't quite at the races, and in hindsight it's great, but I heard it mentioned elsewhere as well. He adds depth to their attack, which they had lost, and that he's a fabulous player anyway. And they probably have one of their best forwards now on the pitch as well. Another massive moment coming here. I'm not showing the score, but Darragh Byrne has scored a very difficult left-footed free. And a few things starting to go referee-wise for Mayo now, where the fouls are, and it's the accumulation of pressure. And it's very hard for the referee to keep, this really good hold-up play. Okay. Very hard for Dylan Casey to do anything. And that's a big, big play. And they get a 20 metre, they get it brought into 50 metres to tap it over. Huge, huge play just after chipping away with 2-pointer from Ryan O'Donoghue, a point, brilliant point from Darragh Byrne from a very hard free. And the screw is turned out. Watching this back, it was a bit more obvious watching it the second time that Kerry were in massive trouble. And maybe it's our experiences and our biases that kind of, on the day, keep us thinking, the inevitable will happen. But one of the key psychological things for me was they never bought into the inevitability. And I spoke about that in the preview. Tyrone didn't do that either. Dublin didn't do that either. There was no, oh God, Kerry's got a goal, which does happen to teams. And I think that's a significant factor. So, this is the last bit of the first half I'm going to go into. This is unbelievable pressing. And it's not always successful. But the overall energy sappingness. Look at the two boys in the full forward line. They come in and squeeze from the other side. That is a big thing. I tried coaching myself. Not easy to get it done. That slows and squeezes the whole pitch, right? When the ball goes past you, it's not good enough to just not let, say, the top three, when it goes out past you. You just can't do it anymore. And David Clifford and Gainey or whoever else, they're all going to have to do that now next year. And every team. Okay, the irony is, we may lose some skillful forwards that we thought we'd get because pressing is going to become so important. They're pushing. But the weakness in Kerry here is, look how hard they have to do to get out. Where is the overload? Where is the other 10 players, let's say, or 7 players, whatever you want to look at it, to help them get out? That's a key problem they had. And something that they will have to rectify when everybody's going to do this to them now, right? At the highest level. I mean, not everybody's able to do this. We have to be clear on that again. But that's just such a significant press that didn't necessarily get a lot of immediate results, but it showed where they were at, what Kerry weren't doing, right? They weren't getting back and helping them to overload and get out, and that they could tire the Kerry attack or in possession play. Okay, so in the second half, very first thing is the throw-in. Now, in a lot of games, I don't want to overemphasize this, but I actually think that was a huge moment. Ball is inside in the 45 almost immediately, and Mayo on the front foot. They have control of the ball. Just a tiny bit of confidence to get you going against a Kerry team who are very good off momentum, are really good in purple patches, which they've shown us over the years. And, the double hop, he gets away with it. There's your bit of luck. Okay? That is luck. That is a poor miss by the referee. No other way of talking about it. It happens. And I've been critical of the referee for his first 15-20 minutes. He got a lot of things right as well, of course, and it is very hard to referee these days. I do accept that. But that's a poor miss. But there's plenty of things that went against Mayo. I'm glad it's evening out in that sense. But just winning that break from a kick from the throw-in, it doesn't always matter. People do put a bit of emphasis on it. But in this context, I remember thinking straight away, this is brilliant. This is perfect. Even before the score, they got the ball and control, and they moved it fast from inside the 45 in 5 seconds. So that's a significant start for me and a significant moment. The next significant phase is straight away for me, right? They win the kick out. It's not a great kick out, really. They're beating Kerry's kick out long, though. This is iron needle stuff. And pretty poor block down from Kobe in ways. And I don't know, could he have picked that up and played it across? Could he have punched it over the bar, right? You're going, young fella doing young fella things again. You are kind of aware it's Kobe and his attitude, which seems to be very similar to his dad's. But you are worried about that. As a coach, it'd be natural, maybe they're used to it in Mayo, but looking on as an observer, you're going, But then, I'm flying it on here a bit now. 18 years old, and he kicks this so confidently and fluidly. Straight away, mistakes don't matter. For me, testament to himself, first of all, and the environment he's been put in by Andy Moran, which I think everybody's seen. It's been Andy Moran has spoke about it even before they won anything, before they got to quarterfinals, semi-finals. So it's not that it's anything new from that perspective. And just a little note here that when you're not at it, right, this is how games turn. Okay? This is how games turn. And Kerry, in fairness to them, and it'll be lost in some of the coaches will get abused now, everybody will question the goalkeeper or whatever, but straight away they came back and they set up a good overload. They got the numbers to the ball and they won a break, and they're in a very strong position going forward here. But look at Mayo's setup. Just look at it. They're not marking the weak side too much. They're willing to take that risk even though it's gone over here. Okay? They shift. They work hard. And they get a wide. Massive, massive, massive period of play there for me. That is setting the tone. And I think, again, I'm talking about hindsight. At the time you're going, this is going well, Jesus, this might be on. There's small beliefs in that. You're almost a Mayo supporter yourself. I said that to several people during the game. I'm as nervous as if it was one of my own teams that I was coaching, or a Cork team or whatever. And I don't really get nervous. In fact, I was probably more nervous for them. But these are the little things you go on back in hindsight now. Like the signs were really there from even further out than I believed. And that's, the belief that maybe they might get caught out or get caught up in it, or there could be some mad stuff still happen. That was all still there in all of us, I'm sure. Okay, so this next bit now is where not great watching for Kerry. And I didn't see it. I didn't notice it at the time watching back, and I saw another angle of this as well. This is a big turnover. Okay, but we'll go on to what it created, right? But look at the body language of the Kerry players, and I don't think they don't make effort whatsoever. I'm not suggesting this. I'm not even going to use their names because you're in a team, everybody's in it. It was just a lethargic they look like a team that are overtrained with about 6 weeks. And I don't believe they are. They have experts at every level. They just haven't got the flow of it. They have too many injuries. They're just tired looking in ways, whatever. Whatever it is. But this, in hindsight, was a significant moment. Gavin White, great hard run. Brilliant play from Sean O'Brien, who's a really underrated player. But look how many of them run away from the ball with their hands in the air and give up. There's 4 Kerry players out on the right hand side of the screen there who literally have taken themselves out of the game. And, this is what it leads to. For me, and this is not reactionary because I've thought about this quite a lot, I think this is the greatest goal ever scored in Gaelic football. For all the reasons that the context of it. So I'm going to go through this at a slow pace and quite analytically, overkilling ways for one goal, but I do think it's up there because of the context of it. But there's a whole lot else going on, right? In here, we see David Clifford marked. Okay. We accept he's been marked here. I'm making an absolute hames of this. Okay. That's not going to work. Anyway, so we have in the screen here 1, 1. So let's say 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. All 11 back. Okay. Effort, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 maybe. So 11 v8. First problem for Kerry. The turnover. Okay. We're running this at 0.35% pace now. Quick offload. Look at O'Donoghue waving him up the sideline, instructing his players. I absolutely love this. So, don't know who goes around behind them, but that's all fairly rudimentary stuff in a way. Give and go, Kerry player gone, Mark O'Shea gone, right? They don't necessarily go again, but there is. This is the step. One of the most physical players taken out there, right? That's an unbelievable step as well. I won't think that's poor defending there from Joe O'Connor. And Mark O'Shea then maybe kind of diving in from behind. The previous ones weren't. I would look at the brilliance of O'Donoghue. Eyes up. The run ahead. This is classic transition play. McBrien's run ahead. Keep running. Kobe's running. Look at Kobe slow up though. Don't overload it with players. And the calmness of this for an 18 or 19-year-old or whatever Darburn is ridiculous. And I just think in the context of the whole thing, that's one of the greatest goals. I'll just go say one of the greatest goals ever scored. But the high skill level, the tactical part of it, but Kerry will look back at the start of it and go, that's the game really. Psychologically, you know, a couple of players really tried to drag him over the line after that, but that was it. For me, there's a lot of stuff happens afterwards, and I'll go through some of it, but that was the game in hindsight. So I'm going to play this though, actually from a few seconds back to the last Mayo kickout, which actually leads to the goal, funny enough. So it kind of goes down in the stats as a goal from a kickout. Okay, great fetch. But I love this and the 1v1. And this is a thing about football now that I think people say that there's so many different styles and stuff, but there are certain opportunities that are universal now with the new rules. That is, if you win a break from a kick out, you have an opportunity in a few seconds to kick it in. That didn't work out, but it showed the kind of bravery of Mayo and an understanding of where danger is, right? Again, this is another understanding. 5-6 players in the middle, transitioning back. Now, if that had made it to Graham O'Sullivan, they might have been in trouble. And then we're going back to this and just Ryan O'Donoghue taking control. Probably 8 or 9 steps there, to be honest. But I mean, who cares? And then the goal again. So just the whole facet of that play, from the word go, showed bravery, you know. And for me, thinking about the game in a bigger sense, this is the one that I don't think looks good for Kerry players. They've kind of given up that look there. Is that... I'm going to pause this here now. Is that playing on the front foot and willingness to kick it in at the right times, even if it's 40-60 or 60-40 or not a 70-30, 80-20, which I still think should be your shooting approach, okay? Because there's only 11 defenders, if you haven't got a fast transition or a fast attack or have turned them over and look like getting a goal, then you definitely should be trying to kick it dead. And that means a 70-30, 80-20 shot. So like those 2 point shots early, there's a lot said about the bravery and all that is important, but they were low percentage shots at the end of the day. I don't think Andy Moran would want them to shoot from one of them from Darburner. One of them was well outside the 45 into what was clearly wind. One, maybe two, and you get a handle on the wind. But I think they had four into the goalie's hands, if I'm not mistaken. So that's not something we can talk about freedom, right? But there's an intelligence to playing as well, right? And a lot of that was from young lads. So I'm not trying to be overly critical. There were young lads doing young lads things. If you're involved in football and you're willing to play 18 and 19-year-olds or 20-year-olds even for their first time and senior championship club level or intercounty level, like, do not complain about that. Like, that is an inconsistency is assured, right? And you go back, even David Clifford was inconsistent. Okay, so he was spectacular, quickly, and effective, but he was still very inconsistent, and it took him a while to become consistent. So just that's something you have to accept. Don't play them if you're going to be worried about things like that. But still something that you're, at least the intention, that we're looking to be that bit more efficient. Unless it's a clear strategy and you have a wind or something, the ball must go dead in the new game. That's the key, right? You do not want to give good footballing teams like Kerry ball into goalie's hands. So that's a learning I think we can all take from this game as well. Bit of a coaching point here and a bit of something I pointed out last week, that Kerry get numbers to the long kickouts and they swarm to the landing zone really well. But if you beat them on it, there is a few seconds where they're vulnerable, and I showed that in the video in the preview. Dublin and Tyrone both had opportunities that never quite worked out. Again, this opportunity in the end actually doesn't work out either, right? But two men jumping for the one ball, it's an old school mistake. The man from behind should always make that call. Good ball here, lads running ahead of the ball. A small hint of a goal chance here for a few seconds, but nevertheless it was a point chance. Okay, it went wide in the end. But that's the quick movement out of a team that overload. And Mayo kind of matched that, but didn't quite. But when you're beaten and you're making fundamental mistakes like running into your own player, then you're in big trouble. So just after that, then we see a kick out from that miss, broken back in, classic way of defending. So one of the full forward line gets the break. Okay. Significant all the way to the end of this play is that I think Tommy Conroy is inside, but the other two are involved in the play out here, and I think that disrupted Kerry. I don't know how deliberate this was. It's just the flow of the game that they went with it. You see O'Donoghue and Byrne out here now, and I'm not entirely sure who's inside. But watch this play develop, which ends up being a pretty inspirational 2-pointer from Carney. You can watch on the way out. I think that's definitely Tommy Conroy inside, so he's the one inside player. But it's actually midfielders, and the rest of them have come out the pitch. I think this caused Kerry full backline trouble because they were out in positions that they may not have liked to be in. So this is one of the last crucial moments for me. There's some good plays to stop 2-pointers near the end that I'll show as well, but this was a big moment defensively for Mayo. So it's Paddy and Clifford had an outstanding effort in the last 20 minutes, and this is a ball into him, but look at the numbers getting there. Even having tripped, the full back does well to keep his head and not dive in. He stayed goal side. He slipped here, right? Looks dangerous. This looks really dangerous. But the players get back, and I think that elevated Clifford's shot, to be honest. It was great scramble. It was actually good defending, even though he was quite beaten from the fullback. Again, here we have another incidents, I should say, of going for it from a kick out. It's great tackling, right? But if you get that turnover, you got to go for it. And the intention was there, in fairness to Mayo. It didn't work out. Got a score from it. And in fairness, one thing I have to say, my admiration for Paul Murphy as a footballer has actually gone up. He was so exposed at times and got out of trouble so many times. Absolutely ridiculous. For the lack of support was poor, but his ability on the ball and his tenacity was remarkable. He had no chance sometimes, and he got caught there. But like, it's harsh for him to be the kind of fall guy there. The support play from behind and in front was very poor. Another big moment coming up here. To be honest, when do we see that? Brilliant player, very skilled. Is he fatigued from missing large chunks of the season, which Jack Connor kind of indicated a little bit with some of them? It's quite possible. That was a tired looking hand pass there. And it was a critical, it was 1 point in it at the time. Any bit of a boost for Kerry, getting level, get ahead. The two Cliffords were starting to play exceptionally well. It was a knockout. It was a killer blow for them. Another big moment here. It felt in ways now at this point, Paddy and David were trying to win it on their own. I don't know if that's a great ball. If David's standing and he's one-on-one, yeah, I mean it is. But they were scrambling back. I think Kerry needed to get a set attack, run down the clock, get some spacing, get a ball over the bar. And that turnover turned out to be quite costly. But again, no second line there, right? The full forward line was quite good in the press for Kerry, but no half forward midfield. And that's a killer. And that's hard to coach, and that's one of the biggest problems you have with pressing and squeezing is actually the second line. Full forward line, you can train them to do a lot of trapping and all that kind of stuff, and a great score then, and that's a huge score really. But in terms of the press there from Kerry, right? So try and go back. Here, well, actually, just in front of it. It's easy to stop and start videos, right? But this isn't too bad from the front three guys. Okay, so these guys here, 10, 14, and I think that's 13. Pretty good. I would even put Joe O'Connor a little bit higher if cut off that switch play, right? But this space here in the middle is the problem where Ryan O'Donoghue is. So you 4, maybe more players out of the picture that are too far back, and if you look at this here, he's looking for the ball straight away. These guys, if you're going to try and trap and press, this ball out is so frustrating as a full forward line, and I've seen it as coaching it myself that it turns lads off even doing it in the top line. This, I coach in lines, not positions, right? So I'd have a defending defenders, attacking defenders. These days I have defending defenders, which is the back 3 and the middle 8 largely, but defending defenders, attacking defenders, and the defensive attackers should be traditionally your midfield or half hour line, and the attacking attackers top three, right? So the four lines, and everybody is part of the squeeze, and everybody's. This line here, I'd often have 3 or 4 up top. Push the centre forward into that if possible at all, and try and trap them in the corner and make the pitch smaller from everywhere. Cornerbacks walk up, the whole lot. 10, 12, 8 and 9 have to be here on the 45. Or thereabouts. And the next line has to push up to halfway or beyond. You're not squeezing otherwise. And this is something Kerry are going to have to learn if they're going to need. And tactics, again, I wouldn't go copying everything Mayo did. You need the players to do certain things. Mayo are very athletic, so they've cornered this type of the game. I did it with teams because we had some athletes and we were underdogs and weren't as skilled as other teams. But I felt if we could psychologically win battles up high, we could get turnovers and compete that way. Some of it worked, some of it didn't. It probably takes a year or two at the lower levels. That's the reality. But you're screwed in this approach if your second line doesn't commit. For some reason, the halfbacks tend to be forward thinking and aren't as afraid to push up as others. Sometimes your full back line will be a little reluctant to play in front. All you want them to do is play in front on your own 45 or something. Just play in front so that they see white jerseys in this case, or green and gold jerseys in this case. It's the half forward stroke a midfielder, or the two midfielders and the two wing forwards, if that's the way you do it in that line. If they don't push up, it falls apart. And that was a great example there of that. And if we run this again, right, look, I didn't see him. Shawnee Shade actually is on the left hand side of the screen there. He had pushed up, right, cleverly, so the switch play wasn't on. But who's 19? What's he doing out here? That's not a squeeze, okay? I'm being uber critical now. This may not be the way they're playing. I'm just trying to give some kind of insight into coaching and trying to get the ball back. If you're going to go squeezing, it has to be committed. And I think Andy Moore has kind of alluded to that. If you're not committed to it, play a different way. And it's a hard change. It's a really hard change because you feel exposed at the back. So, you can see the ball through there. And once you get through there, there's 4. Joe O'Connor starts getting back then. But it's an overlap, right? I didn't tag it in this game now. But games, when I analyse games, I analyse them on live, and I use one particular app which has source of scores, basic enough team. It will show you patterns, and a little bit of individuality stuff. But if I analyse a game afterwards, or if I'm analysing an opposition, one of the things I do count is overlaps, right? If you win the game of overlaps in a new game, I've had one game this season that I've analysed. One game where the team, and I was actually coaching them, we won the overlaps and didn't win the game. And we took poor decisions in attack. We actually got loads and loads of ball into the 45. We turned over quite a bit of it, or we kicked a lot of wides or into the goalie's hands. That's what happened. So that's a different problem. But the point being that when you go pressing and you have to commit to it, you can't expect certain players. It is 14 men outfield. It really is. And if they get the overlap, you're in big trouble. Big trouble. It's not always goals, but players funneling back into the zone, right? Watch your Kerry do again. Okay, they have a no goals attitude. Okay, they're funneling back. They're not marking the arc though. And there's Ryan O'Donoghue. So it's a 2 and a 3 threat. And that's excellent play from Mayo, right? Let's not get away from that. But I was just hoping to show coaches the difficulties with this. This is not easy to do. So if you're going to do it, you need the athletes, and you need complete buy-in, and you need total commitment and a lot of fitness training without the ball, whether people like it or not, and in practicing with the ball, even harder training, if you want this to work. Just one little note here. I don't know the exact stats, right, but I think it's worth noting for the older, experienced lads, right. Diarmuid O'Connor probably surprised some people he started. He had a big influence. He won, I think, at least 2 breaks, if not more, and a clean kick out, I think. But here's Conor Loftus, who came on for him, winning another break. And then Ryan O'Donoghue is taking on Foley and he fouls him. Massive contribution from the older players to go on and replace the guy who's played well and done his role and do the exact same job almost straight away from Conor Loftus there is a massive help to any team. It's just massive, and that shows depth in a different way. We might look at depth as having a tight marking cornerback to come on for another one, or a scoring forward. But players who play like that and know their rules are absolutely critical. One important note here, I think, for me is we really have to give David Clifford a lot of credit for this. But actually, the defending, like, this just shows how good he is, right? We don't want to give him the left. We don't want to give him the left. He'll take the right. And don't think the defender did anything wrong there, interestingly. Just a brilliant score. Now, I could have gone through any of the last 6 minutes to show Mayo's exceptional discipline, or especially around the arc, and the way they work. But look, this is 3v2. Not easy to recognise this, but this is a 3v2. I don't think that's really been mentioned much. I didn't notice that specifically on the day, but they're shutting down the 2 all the time. That was a really, I'm going to forward it again to maybe other points, but they're so willing to cheat and come over, and they know the danger areas, obviously. And this is just the way they come into the zone without tackling or diving in is actually something they've improved. There's a lot said about Mayo's intensity, right? This is great defending. And he still gets the shot off, but it's a little bit rushed. And you have to credit the 2 Cliffords for literally trying to drag their team over the line on their own. But Kerry had plenty of ball. And, you know, a lot of refs would actually give him that free, in fairness to McNally. But again here, scramble. Just superb defending. And I think at this stage of the game, look at the legs of them. And the fitness, but the discipline. And the more aerobically fit you are, the better your brain works. O'Donoghue staying to Paddy's left here. Shawnee Shea again, very hard. And that's basically the ball game. Now this is a lovely thing to see, because the eyes up and the bravery to kick this pass. And sure, we might as well watch the last few seconds again anyway, just for the crack. Questionable Tommy Conroy decision in the end, but very good play, because Mayo go forward. Kobe eyes up all the time, he's phenomenal. And they take the point in the end, and it's bananas. Then obviously from there on the game is over. But just wonderful defending and fitness. You know, we shouldn't be afraid to kind of compliment conditioning and fitness and the development in that sense for people to get to that level. It takes a lot of coaching, a lot of work from various people in the management team. Andy Moore, and I keep saying it, I've regularly been the coach. I always give the credit to the manager. And I've had managers, whereas I might have done 80% of the work. But it's the manager puts people together. It's the manager puts out fires. It's the manager gets in between. John Kiley as well. Really clever person and a certain sensibilities. So the manager is the person who puts all this together and gets the right fitness people in, gets the right physios in, coaches in, whatever. Okay, and there would have been hassle in that camp at some stage this year. I don't know any team who's ever won anything without some friction in the management team. That's just the way it is, because everybody's trying to win. They're on edge a little bit. We're all trying to do our best. sometimes we'll feel someone else is coming in on top of us. It's all a little bit natural, to be honest, right? And if you don't have it, you're probably in big trouble. So wonderful win for Mayo, just amazing. It was emotional for people not even there. I've watched back Ryan Donoghue's goal and got emotional watching it. Just phenomenal. That's my action memory of the whole thing. I think the sorry, it was Darrell Burns' goal, I should say. The Ryan O'Donoghue moves to it. That just sidestepping in the middle of the field, going for it. That's my abiding memory of the game from a skill football point of view, let's say. Mayo obviously hard to know how they'll come out of this at all. Confidence, there's a lot. How will they handle being the champions? We don't know. There's a lot of learning. Teams will copy them, and I'm going to speak to this a little bit. Through the video I've mentioned, like, you have to be very careful about. There's a lot of talk about this is what's going to bring the game the way it's going to go, and I'm going to make a statement now, right, which doesn't make any sense, and I wouldn't do. Okay, but if Kerry wanted to play that way, based on the game the last day, right? If Kerry wanted to play that way, they would have to either drop David Clifford or play him somewhere else. Like, that's a reality, right? And that's silly. I wouldn't do that. No, sorry. I would change where he plays. And I think Kerry, if they want to go that way, I'm not sure they have to go that way. I think they can change things and still be 80% of what they are now and just be better. Like the fitness and getting fellas fresh, that would solve a lot of their issues, They don't need to reinvent the wheel. But if you want to go pressing as an example, he doesn't do it, right? If he started doing it, I think he could do it. He's an animal, right? I would play him at 11. That's where I would play him. I think he's so hard to mark on the edge of the arc. I think the whole thing opens up for him. You can still play Poddy as a playmaker behind there. Do you even play Poddy centre back or somewhere like that, wing back? The game has changed. We got to stop thinking about things the way we did before. I've suggested before in articles I did on Substack about the football championship and about football, about David being tried or should be let out around the middle of the field anyway, right? Centre forward, whatever. I think it'd be good for his game. I would definitely think they should try it in the league next year. Himself and Poddy tried to carry them on their back. They were outstanding. And Paul Murphy, amazing. Shawnee Shea, not 100%, but was still driving on to an incredible level. Sean O'Brien, I'd give a great mention to as well, because I thought a lot of the work he did and his tactical positioning, the way he plays for the team, the little hands he gets in. Macroche had a great season, but I think Sean O'Brien is actually a wonderful foil for that as well. I think he's a little bit underrated. But I think overall for Mayo, look, they're a young team. They've set a standard. They'll have to refresh. They'll have to mind the injuries. They'll have to come through a club championship. They'll need new players. The depth will probably dissipate a bit. I can't imagine all the older players staying. They might. There's no reason for them to retire, to be honest, with any of them that I can see, based on what I've seen. I know Shea didn't come back in, but he looked well up for it, the bits he did play. But in general, I suppose I'm ending this with where football is. And we can get caught up in the excitement. And I know people who read this or read my stuff or watch this or whatever will know that I've been critical of the rules. I was thought there was too many rules. I thought they were put together very poorly. I thought there was a lack of expertise and foresight in some of it. There is a lot of excitement and action in the games. To watch them, they're brilliant. The Division 1, right? Division 2 games, those top 8 to 12 teams, brilliant. Major problem below that for a lot of teams, particularly in the southern counties, and I would say Munster in particular, and places like Wexford, other places like that, where the will to play football is dissipating at an alarming rate. Okay? And an alarming rate. And I've seen that up close. So Division 3 and 4 teams, I know of teams, absolute fact, that literally have a whole team not willing to play with them, right? A whole team that you could say, honestly, potential inter-county starters, Division 3, Division 4 level, not willing to commit, right? Now, is the rules the problem there? No, I'm talking generally about football, but at club level, then the club senior in at the provincial level club, the semi-finals and finals of a few counties, absolutely brilliant. The provincial level football and hurling, for that matter, is I've often thought it's the best sport I've ever seen. It like that thing with Mayo the last day is peak sport, emotion, connection, sense of place, the whole lot, all wrapped up in a just a wonderful. It's hard to describe. You get that in little microcosms in club football, but it's limited, right? And that level will be brilliant, and we see a lot of that. And for the entertainment and the people outside the game that watch it, it'll seem like it's very healthy. I think the physiological challenge of the new game, which was ignored against a lot of protest, um, changes, and maybe it's why Mayo won the All Ireland, has been significant, and I think it's having an effect. The season is too long. Okay, teams are doing their best with it, but you look at Cork, for instance, which I'm quite aware of. Like, if you were a dual club in Cork, you're going to play 18 league games in a row, starting late February, early March. County finals in October, right? That season is way too long. Okay, the county season now. Limerick players last week who won the All Ireland, some of them were playing on the Friday or Saturday night the following week. Okay, no time to break. They are problems. The intercounty season it's fine. I like the split season, but I think there's some change needed. The game itself is so physically demanding now. It's starting to hurt lads. One, there's heaps of injuries, right? Two, at club level, there's a depopulation issues and rural depopulation and all that. There's an interest problem and there's a physical problem. The club season is too long. I reckon it's around April you should start training. No, you could play some cup competitions. Some counties have this quite well nailed, actually. Others is way too elongated, especially dual, where they're trying to fit everything in. There's going to have to be a real rethink about some of that, okay? Do we look at more league based competitions where they just start and it's 6, 8, 10 games and you have a playoff system? I think, that starts in probably 1st of August, right? Uh, give a gap where county players can have time off and whatnot, but don't let leagues start till April. Okay, I think that's one thing, and you may have to reduce them, split them in two for divisions and whatever. You might reduce some amount of games, play competitions early. The players are not willing to do. There'll be differences. There'll be elite clubs where it's so competitive they have an intermediate team and everything. Let's forget about them. That's population. That's numbers. Everywhere else, there's a lot of struggle, and I've heard it even from. I literally talk to coaches every day in my life, give or take the odd Saturday or Sunday, at all sorts of level, and players still playing. And of course, when I'm coaching myself, I'm meeting people, talking to players, watching what's going on, and it's very hard to get lads training them. Yet they're quite fit. It's not like the old days, right? So I think the season is too long. I think the game is too hard for people who haven't grown up playing it. The lads who come through that started at 13, 14, 2 years ago or 2 seasons ago, last year, they'll probably be fine in time, you know, because they've grown up with it. As right, but there's a lot of stress in the body. Okay, so you have to be in unbelievable shape. Added to that, I think, and this is anecdotal, but a lot of lads are starting to just transfer to clubs near where they work. So the driving home now has become a problem. It has been for social economic reasons has been becoming a problem with quite a while. But I think the new rules have enhanced that because getting into the car after training session, you play on a Sunday, you're banjaxed to Tuesday, and you might do it for a year, but it's wearing, right? Um, and there's a lot of things to get right, and a lot of things to practice, and a lot of things that you need to work on now. It has forced a lot of people thought it would get rid of coaching or that coaches could have more control. Yeah, I think it has largely to a positive sense, to be honest. Some of the rules at least. But it's also enhanced the need to be, you have to do kickouts all the time now. And players don't like it. That's a little nuance that, you know, I don't think was considered when the new rules were being designed. Um, like if you want to be good at them, right, you have to do a lot of kick out work, and over a couple of years maybe to get fundamentally better at it. But there's actually more coaching in certain aspects, and there's certainly more conditioning needed, and gym work is even more important. And so a lot of things that people thought they would get rid of have actually become more enhanced. The game is less skillful. Okay, there is players excelling now that 2 years ago really struggled because their skill set wasn't up to it. And that, I'm not slagging those players off at all. Um, it would have suited me to play these new rules, right? But the point is that it's not actually a more skillful game. What we are getting to see is that some of the higher level attackers are getting the space and time to show skillful actions. And I think that's good. And I think the 2 point game, that old basketball thing where they put all the shots from all the seasons, pre 2 point only scoring to post 3 point coming in, and the way it changed. Famous kind of photo. Um, that look at Mayo shot map from the last day. Go back and look at their shot map. I think was it 14 shots, 10 wides, but 14 shots, right? That's the way teams are going to go. Okay, are we happy with that? I don't know. We need to see it play out a bit more. Football isn't basketball. It's taken a lot of its, I suppose, frameworks, but it isn't basketball. So, you know, there's a drain to the game now that I don't think people in the FRC or at the higher levels of Crow Park or whatever understand. And I don't think they want to understand. So some things are going to need a rethink though at some point. And we probably need a bit more time. And as I said, the action and some of the rules have been brilliant. The solo go, I like the 2 points. I don't like the arc for kickouts, but I've lived with it. And you get on with it. And now the goalkeepers and 2 point free takers. Free takers are like there's no freeze anymore. It's incredibly low freeze. Is that good? I don't know. I honestly don't know. Um, it does look a bit better to be taking shots from play, to be honest, right? But that's basically it. Um, the games at provincial club, county finals of some counties, Division One, Division Two look excellent. Far more action, far more exciting, and there's a lot of little nuances within that. Everywhere else, it's not that rosy, right? And not just for the aesthetics of the game. It is still better in some ways at all levels, right? But there is a cost to playing the game now that I was always worried about, and added in some other things out of our control, like depopulation, etc. There's a weird mix coming, and I think there's a bigger disconnect between the rich and the haves and the have-nots, added to the continually disparate spacing between corporate Crow Park and regular GA, and all those things into the mix is not helping participation, retention, keeping smaller clubs going. The dream of making it up through the levels from junior to senior, that's becoming harder and harder for rural clubs, no matter what work they put in. So because the game is no more athletic, it means bigger population, bigger picks, gives it a massive advantage. I know for a fact clubs and counties, and this will happen more, are going after players who used to play Gaelic, who may have given up, or from other sports, basketball, soccer, for various reasons. Being able to press, finding a Ryan O'Donoghue type, that's, if I was a county manager, that's what I'd be going after. I'd be putting them in the full forward line, maybe two of them, you know, and we'll get our scores elsewhere, even if they're not prolific attackers. Um, that's what you need to be doing. That's what you need to be going after. So look, there's no final determination. I'm not saying this in a black and white sense, but I don't think it's all. It's been a brilliant senior football championship. There's no doubt about that, but I don't think it's all rosy in the garden either. And there has been consequences that of the new rules, allied to, as I said, socio-demographic issues that mean we're in a sticky place for the next few years, I think, still, and there will have to be hard decisions made. Or there's certain areas of Cork, Waterford, Tipperary, Wexford, Limerick, where football will die, and a few others. It will die. Um, and there may be other issues in other counties that I'm unaware of. And that's a concern. And it's not helped by the rules and the fact that you need out and out athletes to play the game now. But overall, amazing for Mayo, amazing to even watch it on TV was phenomenal. I can only imagine what it was like to be at it. Um, but it is great to see that they'll have given a lot of hope to a lot of people that there is ways of attacking big teams like Kerry. And I think that's one of the big takeaways, not only from this game, but from the year.